All right, everybody, the last speaker, Stewart, is a wildlife expert and cryptozoologist born and raised in Panola County, Texas. Jeff, the Cryptohulk, began his career after becoming interested in cryptid animals, stemming from an unexplained experience he had at age 15. He has appeared on the TV show Survivor Man, Finding Bigfoot, The Monsters and Mysteries on Destination America. When he's not busy on TV, Jeff has many responsibilities, inclusive of Children's Kingdom Ministries and Kingdom Zoo. He is currently working on a book that is partly an autobiography, and the other part is going to be focused on strange and cryptid events in East Texas area. Very cool. Today, Jeff is going to be speaking on cryptid cats. Let's welcome my best bud, Jeff Stewart.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad everybody came out to enjoy the PhilosoPhenomena Unity Fest. It's an awesome, awesome thing. Today I'm going to be talking about cryptid cats. Cryptid cats stem as far back as the written history, and even before the written history of this country. Native Americans have had legends of black cats and large cat-like creatures as far back as their word passed around a campfire. And a lot of people say, well, there's no such thing as a melanistic cougar. We're not saying they're cougars. We're not saying that they are anything like that. This is a picture that was taken just right down the road from my house, actually. This picture came to me through a hunting buddy that said, man, I got a picture of something and you're not going to believe it. Well, after he gave me the picture, it got on the internet and it went all viral. There are people that have claimed this is their picture all over the U.S. It's not. It's mine. It came to me like 2 days after it was taken. I extracted it from the SD card myself. And it has not been messed with as far as I have done. Other than him himself, he's not a tech guru, so I don't think he messed with it. But this was definitely, you can see the deer in the picture is actually looking at the cat. You know, the cat's sitting there looking at the deer and the deer's looking at the cat. So it's a very compelling picture. I'm not going to say it's 100% true because I didn't take it myself personally, but it's a very compelling picture. This is a solid black bobcat. This was taken in a backyard in Florida. Now, the people say there's no melanistic bobcats either. But what we got to understand about cats is felines can breed no matter what they are. A tiger could breed with a house cat if it was physically possible. The egg would take and it would be fertilized. It's just physically impossible for it to couple. But just like dogs, you can breed a Schnauzer with a Great Dane if the coupling is possible, and there would be an offspring. So the same thing, you take a house cat, now that man has encroached upon wildlife so badly, and we've brought our pets with us. Our pets were once wild creatures that over centuries we have domesticated. Well, you bring those pets around, this bobcat, there's only two urges that overwhelm every other thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're a human being or whether you are an animal, to feed and to breed. And all it takes is for a female of either a house cat or a bobcat to squat down long enough to be bred by the other, and therefore you get the melanistic gene passed on from the house cat and possibly the long-tailed gene passed along at the same time. This is another picture that comes from a deer feeder, and supposedly it shows a mother and a youngster. You can't see it real good because of the border right there, but there is a large cat here and a small cat here. And they basically are under a deer feeder, checking out to see what tasty critters might be coming in for dinner. And this also is another picture you can see with the limbs and things. I mean, this would be a very, not that it's impossible to hoax, but it would be a very difficult picture because the feet match the ground where they're walking. The legs, we took this picture, we dissected it, the pixels match. And a lot of times whenever they hoax a picture, the pixels will not match because they didn't take it with the exact same camera. So you end up with a subject that has a certain resolution and a background that has a different resolution. In this particular photograph, the subject and the background have the identical resolution and amount of pixels. So what is this creature? We have no way of knowing. We have not killed it. We have not captured it. We have not tested its DNA, but it is definitely a black, large feline. Now, could it be a known species? Yes, it can. Very well could be a known species. Jaguars used to range far up into the United States, but due to man's encroachment and farming and then the hunting and chasing out, they were ran out of the United States and killed out. The last known jaguar in the actually in Texas, 1934, was killed on a ranch in South Texas. There are jaguars in Arizona right now. Macho A and Macho B are two jaguars that were caught and transmitter tagged several years back. One of them has passed on now. Macho A has died, but Macho B is still traveling Arizona. And there are other pictures of jaguars that have come up into Arizona. Well, that's not far from here as an animal. When you take into account that a jaguar has a 300-mile home range, a male jaguar, he will, if there's another adolescent male, he will push him out when he reaches breeding age, and he has to go outside of this male's area or he'll be killed. So he has to travel 300 miles. So when you have this one that travels 300, the next one that travels 300, and they keep traveling 300 miles, it doesn't take long before you're pushed into Texas, before you're pushed into the South, up into Mississippi, up into Alabama, Louisiana, everywhere that we're getting reports of black cats. And there are videos all over the internet of black cats. You know, you can go to YouTube, you can see all these videos of these black cats. And they're not all fake. They're not all hoax. Yes, there are, granted, there are a lot of them that are. But not every single one of them can be, because it's not a huge conspiracy between every guy that hunts or fishes or rides a four-wheeler to create a hoaxed video of a big cat. This picture right here came off of my property about, 2009. You can see it's a black cat, long-tailed, and this came off of my trail camera. And this cat probably weighs about 40 pounds. This is not a 250-pound behemoth that you hear tale of, but it's also larger than any house cat that you've ever seen, other than maybe some oddball big cat that's laying on the couch. I mean, we've all seen those, cat that supposedly weighs 20, 30 pounds, but they're not out in the woods hunting food. They're not out living in the wild. This cat here would come up, the way that stick back there is, this cat would come up to about mid-knee and weigh about 40 pounds. That's bigger than the largest bobcat you can find, just about it. So this cat right here, I've had people say, well, it's a house cat. Well, if it's a house cat, I still want it because it is an oddity. It is a 40-pound house cat. This is actually one of the black cats that was killed in the United States. And everybody's like, well, it's not totally black. But imagine if you saw this cat down a dirt road at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it ran across that road from you. How black would that cat look? Or how black would this cat look if it came across your backyard late one evening or early one morning? Even though this was just a cougar, but it was a very dark colored cougar. And the reason that it was this color was because of what it was living in, the conditions. When you take an animal and that animal sleeps in pine straw, the tannins from the pine straw, the acids, will actually go into their fur and create a color similar to what they sleep on. We see this in deer, we see this in lots of animals. If this animal here was sleeping in a hardwood forest and the dark tannins from those leaves were leaching into its fur, it very well could have caused the dark coloration. It's not jet black, but if you saw it, you would swear it was a black animal. The thing that I want to talk about with these black cats is, like I touched before, everybody says that they cannot be a cougar because there's no melanistic phase of a cougar. But if you take what it could be, back in the late 60s, the exotic pet trade in the United States, you could own any kind of an animal you wanted to own. No, there were no laws that governed this and that regulated it. Then they came in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and they made the new laws that required for owners of exotic pets to provide cages and provide proper care and provide documentation. A lot of those cages were opened up and those animals were set free. They just let them go. Right now, one of my good friends, she has a wildlife rescue called Tiger Creek. They have a actual panther or a jaguar called 8-Ball. They rescued 8-Ball at a pool hall. He was chained to the back of the room to a pool table. He had had his fangs pulled. He was declawed. He was a 250-pound jaguar that was living in the back of a pool hall right here in the outskirts of Dallas. And they rescued him. So, I mean, what if somebody thought they were going to get in trouble and they took the chain off of one of these animals and turned them loose? That animal's going to be out there in the wild. It's going to have the urge to feed and the urge to breed, and it's going to find both. And therefore, passing on the long-tailed and the black melanistic phase. So it's not too far of a stretch to think that we're seeing these black cats. We're seeing long-tailed black cats that range anywhere in size from 30 pounds up to some people saying, seeing them 200, 250 pounds. Well, it's a possibility. Not because of one answer, but because of many answers. Because there's many reasons why these cats are out there. Domestic cats are crossbred with servals, Joffrey's cats, Savannah cats, all of these things for the pet trade. Those are all wild animals that they're breeding domestic cats. Well, when you breed a domestic cat to them, you're breeding in the possibility for the melanistic phase. Somewhere down the line, those things escape. They get loose. They go away. On the news just the other day, a professional football player had a Savannah cat as a pet. This is a cat that weighs 60 pounds. It escaped, got out of his house. Took them 3 weeks to find it. They finally found it and got it back home, but that's just to show you that these exotic pets, these big cats, live with people and they get loose. They breed with our cats, even our wild cats. Say a Joffrey's cat, if you know what a Joffrey's is, breeds with a bobcat. Joffrey's cats have longer tails. They have melanistic phase. Therefore, you have a melanistic, long-tailed cat. There's so many ways that those genes can get intermixed and intermingled and hybridized and can create what we see and create what you hear about, and that's the long-tailed black panther that so many of us, I'm sure there's probably nobody that either hasn't seen one or doesn't know someone that has seen one at one point in time, because there are a lot of them out there. Back in 1987, I was at home one day, teenager. We had a big farm, big ranch. We had cows out in front. My mother came and woke me up early one morning and she said, "You need to get up. Our cow has had a calf, and that calf's at the pond. It's a black calf, and it's drinking water." And I said, "Mom, if the cow had a calf, one, she's not going to bring it out of the brush for a week, 2 weeks, she's going to keep it in there safe. And it sure wouldn't drink anything other than milk. It's not going to be down there drinking water." She said, "All I'm telling you is you need to get your rear end up and go out there and check on that calf." So I get up lazily, walk over to the window, look out, and sure enough, there's a black something drinking water at our pond, about 200 yards out in the pasture. I grab my deer rifle off the wall, go to the back door, open the back door, look through the scope, and there's a cat, large black cat drinking water at the pond. Hand the rifle to my mother. She looks through the scope. She says, "Oh my God, son, shoot it." So I shot the cat. It ran in the bushes. Took my best hog dogs that I had. I had hog dogs that would chase down a 350-pound boar hog and wouldn't think twice about it. Took them to the pond, turned them loose on the track, on the trail, the blood. They went home. They turned around and ran. They would not go in the brush. I went home and waited on my dad to get home from work. Well, when he got home, it was dark. He said, we'll go out in the morning. We'll find whatever you shot at. Next morning, we go out, get a shotgun with some buckshot in it, crawl on hands and knees through the briars and the brush where it ran, and we found it. Something else had covered it up with pine straw during the night. So it evidently had a mate. We got it out. It weighed about 80 pounds. Dad was scared back in the 80s. We didn't know what these things were. You know, I wasn't into cryptozoology back then at all. I was just a teenager. Dad said, we're going to get in trouble. This has got to be an endangered species. Let's bury it. So we buried it. But being a kid, I cut its head off and hung it in our barn. Because, of course, I mean, this is, you know, I killed something, man. I'm proud the heck of it. So about 10 years later, we're discussing with a game warden friend that had befriended us, and he was eating at our deer camp, and Dad brought up the subject of black cats, and of course he's laughing, telling us they don't exist. And Dad said, so if somebody killed one, they wouldn't be in trouble. And he said, no. Somebody killed one, they can't be in trouble because they don't exist. So Dad told me, he said, go home, get that head and bring it back. Let's give it to him, let's have it tested, let's see what it is. So I go get it, bring it back. Game warden's looking at this thing going, what in the heck is this? It was the size of a pit bull head. Still had a little bit of black fur on it, but you know, it was kind of mummified, been hanging in the barn for 10 years. We give it to the game warden, he takes it. About a month later, we haven't heard a word back from him, so my dad calls him. His name was Tom. I said, Tom, where is our head? You know, what'd you find out? He says, oh man, I left that thing in the back of my truck and the dogs jumped up in the back of the truck and drug it off. Likely story. They do not want us proving that anything like this exists. The reason why, it will cripple the economy in East Texas. Our economy is based on logging and oil drilling. If you prove that you have some sort of a cryptid, some sort of a rare animal, something that is unique on that property, they can no longer develop that property. They can't cut the timber, they can't drill for oil, they can't do anything. So they're never going to admit that something like this exists until they are forced to by somebody actually bringing a corpse and throwing it, a dead body, throwing it at their feet in front of news cameras. Then they will have to say something exists. But until then, they're going to cover it up. They're going to push it aside because they know the damage that it will do to the economy. Thank y'all.
Thank you to Jeff Stewart for the cryptid cats. And, you know, he's got more stories, but, you know, hair raising, let's just say. So that was a cool one. And it just, undoubtedly, it goes to prove that, again, there's certain elements of certain, you know, we talked a lot about a government things and things going on. And there may be a little inside track of them not wanting that stuff to be known. So, you know, gee whiz, it got lost. How convenient. So, again, pretty cool situation.